You are listening to the Adapt Performance podcast, where we aim to make elite level strength and conditioning accessible to everybody. I'm your host, Jordan Webster, and let's get into the episode. Yes, guys, what is going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Adapt Performance podcast. So in this episode, we are going to be going through some of the questions I got from you guys yesterday and today on Instagram. I always like these episodes because it gives me a variety of things to chat about and yap about and hopefully provide some value. And I'm in a good mood today because we've got maybe the nicest day that we've had so far in the UK. It is sunny in Sheffield. We've got a 20 degree, I think is what we're having. So we've got a good fun dog walk coming up today, fired up. I've then got jiu-jitsu this evening. It's always nicer when it's like good weather. There's just a good vibe about the place. So I'm excited. So, right, let's get into it. The first one is, what sleep hacks have I got? And this is one of those things that people really struggle with. I think as a human race, I actually feel like most people would probably put themselves in like a not great sleeper category, or they don't get enough, or they don't get high enough quality. I do think there's an element of this which is like a self-fulfilling prophecy of like, I think we are tired as a species, right? So I think you're going to have periods in the day where your energy crashes. You're going to have periods of the day when you first wake up in the morning and you don't feel amazing. So I don't know whether an element of us feeling like we don't sleep well enough is actually just the fact that we are human beings and we will get tired and we will have spikes and drop-offs. And when you wake up in the morning, you probably feel pretty knackered, right? So I do think there is an element of like, it's a perfect industry to try and crack. The same as like physiotherapy in a lot of ways, because human beings are going to get injured. Therefore, if I can help you not be injured, it just makes sense. I can remember my stepdad was saying one of the best industries you can get into, this was a few years ago, was flowers. And I was like, why is that? He's like, well, people always need flowers for weddings because people are always going to get married. You know, every person will probably get married at some point, maybe even a few times, and every person is going to die. So you always get, for the most part, funeral flowers and stuff like that. So he's like, get into flowers, probably a really safe industry. I'm like, right, fair one. Same thing with sleep, right? I think a lot of people really struggle with it. And I also have as well, like just to overshare, I am a sleepwalker. I've been a sleepwalker since I was young. Haven't done anything like Step Brothers. No, I have done Step Brothers bad. When I was younger, I put the bath on woke up in the morning, put the bath on, and then went straight back to sleep. So like I flooded the top floor of our house, which my mum was fuming about. I was young though, I was probably like 12. So I definitely cannot be blamed. But with that, off the back of being a sleepwalker, one of the things about it is when you wake up in the morning, you feel like you have not slept. It's because your brain doesn't really go into that deeper level of sleep. Therefore, you're not really recuperating, regenerating, those types of things. So I was really like struggling, pretty early on in terms of just feeling like fatigued all the time, just feeling knackered, just falling asleep throughout the day as a result of me sleepwalking. And I actually got medicated for this because it was that much of an issue. So I was taking something that's called amitriptyline. So it's like I guess it's technically like an antidepressant, but it's more of a case of just kind of helping you shut down. It's more of like a relaxant, I guess you could say. So yeah, being a sleepwalker, I've definitely looked at sleep pretty in depth to make sure that that is no longer an issue. I still sleepwalk nowadays, but it only really gets me in periods where my brain is hyperactive. So if I'm stressed out about something, or equally actually, if I'm excited about something, I think, the brain kind of interprets that in the same way. You're not switching off. So it's kind of a self-sabotage because like, okay, I'm stressed and I really need to sleep. But then my brain will be like, you know what, you're stressed. You don't need to sleep. I'm going to replay a bunch of weird dreams that you're going to act out. It's so weird. But yeah, I don't do anything too crazy nowadays. Usually just mooch around the room looking for something, which is frustrating. Anyway, treating this like a therapy session. So now that I've done oversharing, some of the things I feel like have really helped me and definitely helps our athletes is I did what you can Google it and you can find, a quiz that's called the Sleep Hygiene Index. Essentially, it is a questionnaire that you'll go through where you basically rate yourself on a series of things to do with sleep. So it might be, the environment you're in, the substances that you use, caffeine, that type of thing, how well you switch off, do you have a routine, those types of things. And it just gives you a really clear idea of where you're, almost sabotaging yourself, and you just need to correct those things. So we have a webinar for the Adapt athletes on this, so basically going through the questionnaire and making sure that we attack those things. And you can do that. That'll definitely give you, some direction. There's research that backs that. So I would look at the Sleep Hygiene Index. The other thing I would be thinking about is I don't think people actually give themselves the opportunity to get a decent night's sleep, because if you know that you need to be up at 7 a.m. in order to walk the dog, get the kids ready, leave for work, those types of things. So 7 a.m., but you don't get into bed until 12, right? You're giving yourself maximum 7 hours sleep. Okay. That's assuming you fall asleep the moment you get into bed, and you will not, so you're just not giving yourself the sleep opportunity. So you just need to reverse engineer that. If you know, look, I want 8 hours of sleep, what I would aim to do is get into bed 9 to 8.5 hours before you need to wake up. So you're actually giving yourself the potential to achieve that. That's number one. Don't go into bed 6 hours before you need to wake up and hope for a solid night's sleep, because it's probably not going to happen. So that's on you. That's on you to figure out, right? And most of the time, I think I'm guilty of this, is I want to watch another episode of Vikings, but it's already 10 o'clock. And I know if I don't go to bed now, then I know I'm going to be eating into that time. Look, we're human beings. We're going to fuck up. It's okay. So give yourself the sleep opportunity. Just work it out. Just backtrack a little bit from when you wake up. Give yourself 8 hours sleep opportunity. So you want to give yourself 9 hours in bed, right? Some other things to think about is when you are laying in bed with literally a little device that is 6 inches from your face, that has all the information in the world, that is designed to keep you addicted to it, to keep the dopamine flying. I'm not surprised we don't fall asleep. When you're probably laying in bed 3 a.m. Googling what type of bread you would be. Like, there's those types of things. So what I would suggest is actually just having like a wind down routine that does not involve your phone. Okay, and I know you're all thinking, oh, but I quite like it. It's a nice opportunity for me to switch off. Yeah, maybe. When Instagram is feeding you some good quality reels, there is nothing better. When it actually has your sense of humor or your interest locked in, it's quite nice. We can see how addictive it is, right? Because already me saying, just put your phone down, just put it in a different room before you go to bed. You're already thinking, oh, I don't really want to do that. There's probably an element of us that's like addicted to it. I think as a society, we're over reliant on those things. I've spoken about this before, but I have this little device. It's called a brick. And what the brick does is it allows you to lock apps on your phone, but still have your phone with you. So basically, I use my alarm. I use my phone for sleep music, okay, which is another thing we'll go into. I listen to sleep music, but I also use it for my morning alarm, right? So what I do is I brick my phone downstairs so it locks Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, YouTube, anything that I just don't need. Pretty much everything except for alarm and Spotify. And the weird thing is, I genuinely go to bed feeling more relaxed. Like I don't have to, because my work is on my phone, right? So I'm always kind of drawn to it, of just checking it and making sure that I'm replying to messages for the athletes and that type of thing. Even though we do have a cut off in the day of when I'm technically working, I'm still on, right? Same thing with Instagram. I'm looking at Instagram. Is there any ideas I can be doing in terms of content, that type of thing? So just shutting it off just gives me an opportunity to be like, right, this is my time. And what I've basically replaced that with is two things. One, I journal. Okay, so it's on Amazon. It's have a 5 or 6 minute journal. Basically, asks you a few questions around like gratitude and what went well today, what didn't go well. It gives you like a monthly rundown of some things you want to be focusing on, some weekly questions. It's really cool. I'm a big fan of it. I actually feel like this has made a difference to my quality of life, not only my sleep quality, because it actually gets you thinking about what has gone well instead of you just kind of stuck in a rut of just going through the motion of just day passing, day passing, day passing. Actually taking some time to think about, okay, well, what have I done well? What am I really appreciating at the moment? And equally, ask you some absolute bombshell questions that actually really get you thinking about the direction of your life and some of the mistakes you've made and some of the lessons you've learned and some of the people that you really need to spend some more time with. But that's been useful, like just getting rid of the phone and just focusing on that for 5 minutes. Awesome. And then I've been reading. Okay. So just getting into a book. I'm not a good reader. Like I struggle with it. I'm definitely one of those people that I'll go through a page and then I'll be like, I literally have no idea what it's just said because my mind's been off thinking about other things. Like my eyes have been reading, but I've actually not taken anything in. I'm getting better at the actual skill of reading as time goes on, like actually just focusing on what is being said in the book. And I recommend it. And this is nothing new. As you're probably listening to this, you're probably thinking, yeah, this is the same stuff that everyone else says. And it is. This is the thing. Like, if everyone else is saying the same stuff, but you're still struggling, then that is not an information problem. That is a you not actioning the stuff problem. So doing that has helped. I take magnesium before bed. So I literally have like these magnesium tablets, and that really helps you get deeper sleep. Like the first time you take ZMA, which is zinc magnesium, which is like a supplement, or just magnesium alone, you will have the maddest, wildest dreams. And it is unreal because I don't really dream that often, to be fair. But when I take magnesium, I go and it's sick. So I would recommend getting magnesium. Just try it. It's 10, £15 for a pot and it'll last you 3 months. If you like it, great, continue. If you don't, it's 15 quid. You probably spend more than that on a lot worse things. So I'd recommend that. In terms of environment, right? So we bought an aircon unit from Curry's 3 years ago. Okay, it's about 300 quid. It's one of those ones that the pipe light sits out the window. And that's awesome. As we come into summer, we'll get that going again. So the room is actually cold, and that makes such a difference when the heat is against you and you just know you're going to be tossing and turning, you're uncomfortable. Aircon unit in the summer, no brainer. It also provides a decent amount of like white noise of just like that type of thing, which is really important for making sure that noises through the night don't wake you up and kind of disrupt that sleep. So whether it is the dog barking, well, actually she still wakes us up, she's loud. Whether it is cars going past on your road or a fire alarm going off in somebody else's house, not your own, you want to wake up for that. But like that white noise, we use sleep music during the winter months. And then we basically have the aircon on in summer months. I would definitely invest in a good quality pillow. People ask me about like Aura rings and Whoop straps and those types. I'm like, look, take the money that you would spend on that over a year and just get a better pillow. I think that would be better. Same thing with like your ice tubs and those things for cold water immersion. Just get a better pillow, get a nice quality mattress. You'll spend a lot of money on it, but fuck me, you spend a third of your life. If we think about it, 8 hours times 3, 24. Cool. You spend a third of your life in bed. Actually make sure it's a good third of your life, right? Get a good pillow, get a good mattress, get a duvet, which actually supports the way that you want to sleep, that is like decently weighted if that's what you're into and those types of things, because it bloody matters. What else? What else makes a big difference? Dark. Yeah. Just making sure it's quite cave-like. That's something we had to invest in, is getting some decent blinds. Makes a big difference. My missus, it's like a nightly thing where I'll tell her, can you spin around? She's got like an electric toothbrush and she'll have it on charge. But it's like a lighthouse that's fucking flashing in my face all day. And I'm like, all night, I'm like, you need to spin that around because I'm stressing, So little things like that, I do think matter. That's probably more of a placebo because I know it's there. I know it hasn't been turned around so that it starts playing in my mind. But if you're having like those little glimpses of light, that's not good for getting into a deep sleep. So there it is. I would just be leaning into those. Do the sleep hygiene index, have a little think about the things that I just mentioned there and see how it works for you. You can definitely start looking at some nutritional stuff as well. To be honest, I've never really struggled with the nutrition side. Like I could definitely go to bed on a decent full stomach and I feel okay with it. I could also go to bed without having a delicious sweet treat before, even though it's not as fun. I can do it. Booze, okay, I'm pretty much anti-alcohol. Like I just don't see the purpose in it for me. And you're probably all there thinking, I bet you're ace at parties, and you're correct. I'm not. So with this then, booze will definitely disrupt your sleep quality. I know after a long day of a stressful, you might want to have a whiskey, you might want to have a beer or whatever, but it will affect your sleep quality. You probably are going to sleep shit. If you do use a Whoop band, you'll probably know this already because you'll look at your data and be like, it's not going well. So I would be thinking about, reducing that alongside caffeine as well. Caffeine later in the day for some people does ruin sleep quality. I feel fine with it, to be honest. I could definitely have like a later coffee for training and feel fine. But you need to figure out how that works for you. But I'm probably super tolerant to coffee because I just live on it, which is probably not great. But like I said, and to be honest, I sleep good. Like genuinely, at this point, I feel like I've spent so much time locking in those things. My sleep is pretty solid, other than the odd period of sleepwalking. Like I said, so there's sleep. There's my thoughts on it. They're my hacks. They're not really hacks. That's just what everyone else will say for you. Cool. Moving on then. The next question is, how impactful do I feel like coaching is for life, not just training? And this is a really good question because we were speaking about this at training last night and speaking with a coach around. You kind of need people around you that are going to hold you accountable to a good standard. They want to make sure that you live up to your potential. So if you're not doing what you could be doing or should be doing or what you said you were going to do, you need people around that are going to pull you up on that and be like, fucking sort yourself out, and I think that's really, really important. And look, coaching isn't always like hard. It's not always do this, you fucker, right? There's an element of do this, you fucker. But there definitely is periods and times where coaching is a little bit softer. It's a little bit about, slowly guiding somebody to make better decisions and build up the confidence over the long term. And I definitely, we've got athletes that we still work with to this day that we've worked with for 6, 7 years, right? And when they first started, like confidence in the gym and in training and in nutrition and what they wanted from their athletic performance was really low. Like they weren't confident people. But over time, slowly guiding, slowly kind of nudging people in the right direction, pumping the tires when they do good stuff, but also giving them pretty, critical feedback for them to improve and really kind of maximize this coach athlete relationship and to get them better results. It's like nowadays, like their standards for themselves are so high. But I say that in a really good thing because fucking right, your standards for yourself should be high. Like, if you want something from your life, nobody else is going to do it for you. You've got to be the person that's driving this bus, right? And it's been really cool seeing athletes that didn't typically have that drive initially, but through good, hard training that challenges you, alongside having somebody that's going to give you feedback on what they can be doing better, even if it's just technical stuff in the gym, you can start to see how that kind of manifests into their life and how they hold themselves. And I think it's awesome. So I feel like coaching it's good for everybody from a life standpoint as well as training. And look, I think back to some people I've had in my life that they probably don't even know that they've coached me, like friends that have just been like, just asking a few, little probing questions around goals that I've had in the past that I'm currently not doing. And it's like, ooh, you fucker. And it's good though. Like, I think you need people that are actually going to demand, might be the wrong word, but like, you want people that are going to elevate it. You want people that are going to challenge you. You want people that are going to like push you to do stuff that you are capable of. And look, the reality is not everybody has those people around them initially. You might not have a friend or a family circle that instinctively kind of give you those little nudges, those little pushes that nudge you to take a qualification to get a promotion at work, or to go and do that gym session, or to sign up to a competition you said you've been doing for a long time. And you might not have that right as part of your life. So maybe just do a bit of an audit right now. Like, do I really have people in my life that are pushing me to be the best version of myself? If you don't have people in your life that are doing that, maybe you need to put those people in your life. Maybe you need to hire a coach, a mentor. You need to choose a different circle of friends that are not just going to be pissheads down the pub that are just kind of, boozing the life away every single night. And maybe you need to surround yourself with people that are doing things that align with what you see for your future. And that, like, I'm not fully against alcohol. I'm against alcohol for me because it doesn't do me any good. However, I do think there is definitely a turning point where I feel like it is not beneficial for people's lives. And realistically, I'm going to go off on one now. I'm ranting. Booze for me, I just think it's expensive, ruins your body. It's literally a poison. I think for a lot of people, it actually just is a numbing agent for them not dealing with life stuff. I think the amount of deaths that are probably attributed to it. I think if there wasn't such a financial incentive for the government and the world to use alcohol, it just wouldn't exist. It's like, well, fucking hell, let's just legalize heroin. People have a great time on heroin. I don't know if I'm going to get. I don't know if Spotify is going to shut this podcast down because I just said we should legalize heroin. Fuck right. If you don't see this podcast, you'll never see this podcast. So yeah, how impactful is coaching for life? Look, I love it, right? I've invested in a lot of coaches in my time, a lot of mentors in my time, just to get myself around different people that give me different skills and different perspectives. And I really value it. I try and like lean into that. I think I was thinking about this on the way home from training last night, off the back of that conversation we were having in jiu-jitsu around having just good people around. One of the earliest people that I feel like has had the biggest influence in my life, right? It's fucking crazy because it's happenstance. I feel like so happenstance is like a freak occurrence that has happened in the past by circumstance, but has like a greater meaning. And I'm not religious, right? I don't really believe in that. But there's so this situation, right? So my first job, in the industry was I was working at the Grimsby Institute of Higher Education's gym, right? That is where I used to live, Grimsby, and got a job in the gym, which is cool. I was the first gym instructor they ever had because it was like a new facility, and I just qualified as a PT. And I'd been interested in like gym and training for a long time. And as part of this role, you would basically just do gym inductions. Like you didn't have to do classes, you didn't really personal train or anything like that. You could if you wanted to, and I definitely did, right? But it would be like a 2 or 3 hour shift at the end of the day, beginning of the day, that type of thing. It was mostly inductions and it was really quiet. So most of the time I would just spend just on the computer, right? And I'd be reading, I'd be looking through journal articles, I'd be on T Nation, I'd be on Charles Poliquin's website, I'd be reading up on Westside Barbell and, some of my early influences. And this one day, right, we had a guy come in who I think he was studying at the uni and he used to come in and he used to, I could see him with a scoop of pre workout as he was walking. And what was it called? Fuck, I can't remember what it's called. But anyway, it's called Fraser. He came in, he was a big old boy, right? You could just look at him, he was strong. He used to come in and do a 300 workout, which I think was like 10 sets of 10 on like 3 different exercises. So like probably too high volume to really get much from, in my opinion, nowadays, but he was a big boy. And we were just speaking, and it was my job to give him an induction, which was quite funny. So we basically laughed about that. I had to show him like how a treadmill works. And he's like, yeah, mate, this is sick. And like we both knew that he could probably like bench me 15,000 times. But we got chatting, in between his session, and he basically asked me like, okay, so what do you enjoy doing about this job? And I was like, well, to be honest, I don't really gel well with body composition changes, body fat loss. Like it just doesn't, like, don't get me wrong, I enjoy seeing somebody change, right? That's cool. But for me, I think it's athletic performance. I think it's like training for a specific performance related goal that really kind of does it for me. I'm not too bothered about helping 90-year-old Wendy do this, this, and this. And it's like, okay, so how are you going to do more of the stuff that you want to do then if you're currently in this situation? If you're in this environment where you don't really have an opportunity to work with those types of people. I was like, mate, honestly, I don't know. He's like, okay, well, something to think about. And kind of left it there, right? Just left it lingering like a fart in the wind. He came back in the next week. So I think he was doing a PhD or something. Came back in the next week. He was like, I chat last week. Have you thought about like how are you going to do this? And I basically came to him. I was like, look, personal training is good, and you could definitely reach a lot of people. But if you want to work with sports teams, you want to work with athletes, for the most part, you probably need like different levels of qualifications. And I don't have those, and I don't think I could really get them. Essentially, what I was talking about was a degree. And to be honest, I definitely had like lower confidence at this point because I just didn't feel like it was really on the cards for me. I just, I didn't really feel like I had that drive as well. Weirdly, I think I was kind of stuck in this limbo, just not knowing what I wanted to do in my life. Therefore, I just kind of didn't really commit to much. But I was good at the gym stuff. I was good at the coaching, in my opinion, earlier on. And he said, okay, why could you not get those quals? Again, just left it. He was so good at commanding the space, right? He'd ask it and he'd just wait. He'd wait for me to think and wait for me to give a response. And essentially, there was no answer. He was like, mate, what I want to do. He basically asked me about my qualification setup and how that works. I didn't go and do A levels, and didn't really get enough UCAS points to go to university. So he said, mate, let me do you a favor, right? I want to introduce you to my old tutor who has an access to HE course, which is basically like A levels for adults that want to go to university but didn't really get the points necessary. From that, he basically introduced me to this woman called Ann Barker, and she was the head, and we basically got it started, and that was the start. So that next year I did my access to HE course. I then went to university, did my degree, did my master's, the UKSA to be accredited as an S&C coach, and here I am, right? But that to me is mad, right? I was thinking about this all last night. I hadn't thought about that in years and years and years, and here it was, this guy that I think I probably met 3 times, realistically, like really kind of shaped the direction of my life. And he was just so good at being like challenging me when I would say something, like, oh, I just don't think I could really do that. He's like, oh, why? And he's like, so all that to say, right? You need somebody that can call you on your bullshit. You need somebody that can drag you up to a next level of something that you demand of your life, right? Because nobody else is going to do it for you. Um, so yeah, I think that's it's really cool for me to like share that because I haven't really spoke. I don't think I've really told people about that because it's not something I've ever really had in my consciousness. Um, so yeah, like I think coaching is that I've seen coaching change people's lives. So when I was at university, I used to help out also a coach of mine called Chris. He was a strongman coach, but he was doing his PhD in using exercise as a recovery tool. So recovery in the sense of helping people overcome alcoholism and drug addiction, and helping minority groups and things like that. And so I used to do some classes for drug addicted folk, right, that were trying to get help, and we'd do circuits. And honestly, through coaching, through giving them like little things to work on and helping them move their body better and find confidence and give them something to think about and look forward to, like you genuinely see people's lives change. And I'm not saying that was me. I think it's the whole program setup was amazing, and some people did not change their lives. Like it's not like exercise will give everybody the same amount of life back, but fuck, genuinely changes lives. And I'm a big believer in it because I feel like it's done that for me, and I've seen it a million times. Coaching is just a good thing. So yeah, I just think it's super. I think it's super empowering for the hard conversations that you do have to have. And look, this is one of those, right? I think when you pay somebody to coach you, you're essentially investing in your results. You're investing in you, and I do think it's important to do so. Like I had an athlete, right, a couple months ago, and we agreed that they were going to do a certain amount of sessions, 2 sessions, 3 sessions, can't remember exactly what it was, but they didn't get one of the sessions done. And they basically came to me and was like, "Oh, I didn't get that session done last week, and I'm really pissed off about it." And I think in that moment, what they kind of wanted from me was reassurance, And I think at this point, because we were still fairly new in our coaching, yeah, I'm really pissed off about missing that session. I said, good, be pissed off about it. Like, be annoyed that you haven't done the thing that you said you were going to do in order to achieve the results. Don't let it ruin your week. Don't let it like shatter your confidence. But be annoyed, because I think that negative emotion's fine. Like, we don't need to run away from negative emotions. I feel like really life changing, good behavioral things happen off the back of negative emotions. I think it forces you to change. And he kind of laughed because he was like, "You fucker, that's not what I want in that moment." But I think it's what I needed in that moment. I think too early on, if you kind of give people too much of a leash in terms of coaching, I think sometimes it doesn't go well. But sometimes I think you need to set the stage pretty early on of like, no, be annoyed. You didn't do what you said you were going to do. Cool. We're going to do better next time. And it's like, oh, you fuck. But they're good. That doesn't always happen. I definitely have people where I'm like, okay, we go a little bit softer. We approach it in a slightly different way. And it might be a case of, look, you're consistent 99.9% of the time. Therefore, you missing one of your first 4 sessions this week is so fine. In fact, it's probably a good thing because you probably just trained relentlessly for years. So yeah, there's some things in coaching anyway. We've got one final one, maybe two. We'll see how long I go on isometrics. So, do I feel like isometrics are underrated or overrated for performance? You're not allowed to say. It depends. So you're trying to make me not sit on the fence. Cool. I am going to go. Well, before I get into this, let me actually establish terms, right? So, for people that aren't aware, isometrics are a group of exercises that you can do that essentially involve holding a position where there is no length change in the muscle. Okay, so that could be where you are pushing maximally against an object that isn't going to move, or it could be that you are trying to hold your body weight like a plank or a wall sit, or holding a bicep curl at 90 degrees, those types of things. Isometrics, for the most part, have like two different purposes. So if you're pushing against an object that isn't going to move, then essentially the types of qualities you're trying to develop are like maximal strength, potentially power related, or returning back to play after an injury. And this is like higher up the stream of return to play. You're getting close to being able to produce the forces that you need. And that is like overcoming isometrics, more performance related isometrics. You then have yielding isometrics, which are a little bit more health focused isometrics. So like wall sits, good for building up quad strength, potentially after an ACL. You've then got some patellar tendon benefits. It might be that you're doing a bunch of core exercises where you're trying to resist, gravity. So you get like good core, maybe not strength, but muscular endurance. They're generally geared for a little bit more muscular endurance in a lot of places. Obviously, you can load them. But yeah, you essentially have two different types of ISOs. Do I feel like they are underrated or overrated for performance? Again, let's dissect the terms here. Do I feel like they are underrated or overrated? So this is me making an assumption on what I feel like people rate highly or lowly about. Lowly? Yeah, we'll go with that. Do I feel like people do that? So it's like my thoughts on what people rate. I'm going to be honest, I feel like they are underrated. The reasons why. I think people do not appreciate how beneficial isometrics in particular can be for a range of reasons. I did a full podcast on isometrics not too long ago, so go and check that out because you'll get a little bit more depth from me. But I don't think people really appreciate some of the strength qualities you can get from an overcoming isometric. Obviously, it is position. I can't say position specific. So if you're pushing against a rack that isn't going to move and your knee is at 90 degrees, you're not going to get full strength carry over into the bottom of a deep squat or above it. Like it is only really at that specific joint angle, plus or minus about 10 degrees, 15 degrees either way. So there is a little bit of movement, but it is pretty like locked into that range of motion. That can be cool from a sport specific standpoint, because if look, most of us is going to be sprinting in a very repeatable, similar way. So let's just aim to make ourselves super strong in a certain degree of knee flexion or ankle plantar flexion, just so we know that there is carryover. The beautiful thing about you really locking into an overcoming isometric is you can be super stable, which means that the force output you can generate is huge, which means that the strength potential is also pretty huge. And that is why I think they're really good, because if you can be very specific in terms of the positions that you need to be strong in, and then attack it with an exercise where you actually try and like break the bar in half or lift the squat rack up or whatever the exercise is that you're using, you can get crazy strong. I think, so yeah, I just don't think people really appreciate that. I think the benefits of it is crazy strength. You can also treat it for power. So instead of ramping up over 5 seconds up to a maximal like 100% hold, you could do it over 1 second. So it has a little bit more of a rate of force development characteristic to it. I think that's useful. I think they're not very fatiguing, so they don't give you much muscle damage. So if you're in a peaking phase or you want to use it to potentiate a power movement like sprinting or punching or grappling, that is great, because you get like really high central nervous system activation, motor unit recruitment without any of the downsides that we typically see from post-activation potentiation, like that priming sensation. So you could do like an overcoming ISO, rest for a bit, go into your power exercise, and you're probably going to see an increased performance in that power exercise because you've really kind of got the brain and the body switched on. So I think they're underrated in that regard. Yeah, that's kind of my answer, and I just don't think people do them enough, value them enough. I think they're crazy effective when it comes to bridging the gap between rehab and performance, so when you're returning back to full play of getting back into training, you want to know that you can tolerate the forces required to sprint or punch and those things. So doing it in a super safe environment, like pushing against a barbell or a leg press that's loaded super heavy, really cool way of doing it, because we can get you exceeding the forces that you're going to be exposed to in training via these methods really, really safely. And your confidence is going to be so high off the back of you, like really trying to like push that leg press and it's not going to move. Like for you to have confidence in your knee or your hip or your ankle or whatever's been hurt is huge. Like that confidence is such a massive part of it. So yeah, I think they're underrated. I was going to go down the route of saying it depends, but I'm not even going to say it. There's my answer. Stick to it. Chew on that. Let me know what you think. Cool. What I'm going to do then, I'm actually going to leave this next question for the next podcast, because I know there's about 15,000 things that I'm going to rant off about on that one. So I'm going to leave you wanting more. That's what I'm going to go with. Leave you wanting more. So chatted through a little bit of some sleep hygiene stuff. So some sleep hacks, some important key points. I'm a sleepwalker. You want to check out the sleep hygiene index, get into a routine, avoid alcohol as much, avoid caffeine as much, lock into your environment, get some magnesium, it'll change your life. Get a brick just so you're not on your phone, because just probably not great for you. Give yourself sleep opportunity. Then we chatted through how important is coaching for life. I think it will completely change your life, to be honest. Yeah, it just will. And then isometrics for performance, I feel like they are underrated. There's my answer. Sweet, cool. Guys, it has been emotional. It's been fun. I've enjoyed that. That was cool to yap about. If you've got any questions about what I chatted through today, please do let me know. As always, I am always available for questions and stuff and just discussions. On Instagram, that's probably where you're going to find me the easiest. If you are an athlete looking for coaching, then hit the little link in the show notes below this and it'll take you through to our website. Watch the video. It'll just give you loads of information on how to approach it and whether we are right for you. I'll always just tell you if we're right for you or not. But yeah, beautiful. Hope you have a good rest of the day, guys. I'm going to go get a coffee, going to go get a haircut so I look fresh. And then, I've got some training tonight. All right, speak soon. Okay, that is the end of today's episode, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed that. If you did, please do let us know and then share it with somebody who may find this episode interesting. Okay, see you next time. Cheers.